So, like most of the time, like we're talking
Like
about
when
these.
we had Jack on, like the
Yeah.
DeFi and all that, because that's like, I don't know if like the decentralized finance is a big thing because a lot of people are, I guess, financial firms and stuff. They have a bunch of different formulas and a bunch. They
Right.
almost have like bias. They have
Yeah.
a little bias when it comes to loaning out money to people. But when you have like a decentralized, I don't know a ton about it, but when you have that, it's like it allows more people to get in that might not could get into the traditional.
I read an article the other day. This was crazy to me. So these big banks, like Bank of America, these big banks, they'll buy information from like through data brokers from Apple,
Yeah.
and they'll get information like, does this person consistently plug their phone in at night? And there's just all these different variables that they buy from Apple. And then when you go to apply for a loan, they put your name into their database or whatever, and they
Yeah.
can see like, oh well, he inconsistently charges his phone, so he might be an inconsistent payer. There's like crazy things
Wow.
like that.
Exactly. I don't
That's
like that. I mean, that's
wild.
like coming from a perspective of if it was my money, then I would like want that data.
Right.
Yeah.
But being somebody that's like, oh, I want this loan, I don't want that to
Yeah,
have that
exactly,
to have that bias.
exactly.
But going
It's a
back to
double-edged
the
sword.
yeah, going back to the whole thing about new ideas and most of these things, like the DeFi and outside of like the super tech based like initiatives and new businesses, most new businesses are figuring out not how to reinvent the wheel, but how to roll it in a different direction.
Right.
And so, like your first thing with WZ Auto, what is that, and like how did that start? What is the like describe
Yeah,
that?
I
For me.
mean,
Yeah.
so really, it's like I call it my hobby company, but we just buy and sell cool cars. I scroll Facebook Marketplace. I mean, I've got a 1981 Mercedes 380 SL right now, and
Awesome.
I seriously was turkey hunting one morning and saw it in a barn on the property across from the one I was hunting.
Wow.
Drove around till I found the house, knocked on the front door, and bought it. I mean,
Dude,
it's,
that's
awesome.
crazy.
it's just finding cool things, and because I've always wanted to do something like that, but I know that's not a ton of money in it. It's not a
Mhm.
stable business, and so I was like, well, let's just merge my hobby and a business and
Mhm.
start this. And so, really, the main issue with it is I'll buy a car. I created a bunch of financial models to say, this is how we can estimate how much it's going to appreciate. This is how
Mhm.
much we're going to have to put into it. That's how long we're going to have to hold it to
Right.
reach a certain, return. But the issue is when I hit that date, I don't want to sell it.
Right.
It's
You've
like
got
it's hard.
an
You fall in
attachment
love with
to
this
it.
car.
Yeah.
It's hard to sell it. But
Probably the
I mean,
same
that's-
thing in the real estate sort of area. I know we're gonna get to that, but
yeah,
it's same sort of thing is like, and it's interesting too. Obviously, we're gonna dig into these things, but your sort of portfolio of businesses is it seems like with the landscaping, you're focusing on like sourcing and distributing,
hmm
and with the real estate side, you're focused on the investments and development and getting into a thing and then making that better and then selling
right.
that off. So this is cool because it's kind of like a culmination of all of these aspects.
Yeah, I want to get
Yeah.
into all of them, and I have questions about all of them for sure.
Yeah,
And one
absolutely.
question about the car thing: Do you? I mean, I'm sure you like probably have some mechanical skills, and you probably would do some
Right.
work. Do you do all the work yourself, or do you outsource
question.
it to shops?
I outsource a lot of the work. I've worked on small cars and small engines for most of my life, and I love doing it. But right
You don't
now,
have the time, probably.
yeah, it's a time thing.
Yeah.
So I've got relationships with a lot of different mechanics and a lot of different tire shops and everything you have to go throughout the process. And I just really outsource a lot of it to them,
Yeah,
depending
no
on
doubt.
pricing. That is.
And I mean, you definitely, depending on if you're in different brands of cars,
Right.
different car, you got to have different mechanics because
Mhm.
not every mechanic knows how to work on every car or
Right.
has the technology. That's what I've run into with my car is that I've pulled up and they're like, sorry, buddy, we can't work on that.
Yeah.
We don't even have the tools. And I'm like, sucks, man. But luckily, there is a shop next to my house that I'm trying to build that connection with
Right.
and get some good deals because they actually just got bought out by these new guys, and my the law firm I work at actually handled the transition, so that was
Really?
kind of some
Okay, yeah.
insider info I got. So I kind of have that little one up on everyone else. But they were not in the market of trying to help people like my age. They were more trying to help people that were older, and that was where
Right.
I've really kind of seen bias and things like that,
Mhm.
because they literally told me, we don't really want to work on your car. We just want to work on, your grandma's car, because
Right.
she'll pay more. She'll,
Exactly.
she won't be in the shop as much, whatever the case is. And I'm like, isn't my money green? I don't know. I don't get it. But
And I'm sure y'all have dealt with this a lot as well, but that's probably the hardest thing that I've had to deal with in starting businesses at a young age is just people taking you seriously. Like giving
for
you the same time of
sure.
day they'd give your parents.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
I've had to tell my dad, I'm like, Dad, listen, here's the money. Just go get it done for me. Because you're good. They'll
They'll
take
listen to you,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
What's up, guys? This is the What's Next Birmingham podcast, and today we are sitting with an exciting new guest, Zach Lauderdale. And Zach, you run a lot of interesting businesses. Do you mind like briefly describing each one of them, like starting with
Yeah.
Lauderdale
Yeah.
Group and finishing with the cars?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first off, very happy to be here. Thank you for having me on today.
Of course.
But yeah, just starting off, the Lauderdale Group. So, we do commercial real estate acquisition, sales, development, and consulting. So we really try and capture the A to Z process, everything dealing with commercial real estate. And then, just short intros. Moving on, Bulldog Plant Brokers.
Mhm.
It's a horticulture commodity brokerage firm. So we buy and sell landscaping materials, plants, and everything in that world, all the way down to burlap sacks and pots.
You gotta
plant
have
pots.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So
I didn't know it was that detailed.
Oh yeah, we'll do.
That's wild.
I have a
we'll
lot
say
of
anything.
questions for each of these different things.
Yeah.
So is the Lauderdale Group, is it holding your interest in all of these things?
So Lauderdale Holdings is the corporation.
Oh,
that
but the
holds-
group is your commercial.
The Lauderdale Group is
Okay.
owned by Lauderdale Holdings.
Okay, I
Yeah.
see. Very
So
cool.
the Lauderdale Holdings is the umbrella corporation.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. Then actually, I don't think we really talked about this one because I was really in kind of secretive phases of starting it. But it's Lauderdale Financial. It's a specialized financing company for landscapers and homeowners to finance your
Cool.
plants and finance your landscaping renovations, so you don't have to pay for it all up front. Make it a little more accessible to
How are you
everybody.
doing that?
Oh.
Financing a tree. I'm financing a tree in my yard, guys.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, that stuff can get expensive.
Oh, I
think you'd
know.
be
Yeah.
surprised
I know.
at how expensive. Because when I was starting the business, I got a little sticker shock. Isn't that
Mhm.
what they call it?
Yeah, were you surprised
Yeah.
about
But
price?
You are
of
buying
things?
in
Yeah.
bulk, I'm sure, but still,
Right. Yeah.
you probably do get a discount in that regard. But no, I'll go to the like Home Depot or Lowe's, or I've tried to go to the more local places.
Mhm.
But the plants, like I was going there and spend $300 on some
Oh,
house
yeah.
plants. It's
Easily,
ridiculous,
yeah.
dude.
Those are really marked up.
Oh, that's true.
Trust me.
true.
Yeah.
That's my issue now. Is whenever I want some plants, like some small plants.
Yeah.
Well, you just go to Home Depot and buy them. But I look at the prices and I'm like, I'm not paying that.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It
I just
hurts.
know how overpriced that is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then so moving on, there's WZ Auto, which is like I was telling you earlier, just kind of a hobby company.
Mhm.
It merges my obsession with cars to an actual business. So we
Yeah.
just buy and sell just quirky, classic, cool cars. Basically, just cars I wanted to own my whole life.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, ask about the entry into the business world.
So yeah, so what sparked you to like want to have a business? What
Mhm.
got you interested in owning your own business or creating your own business? Was it maybe like family, or just like wanting like to be successful and seeing that, I want to start my own thing? Like what was that?
It really was, being an entrepreneur and wanting to start businesses made me kind of the black sheep of my family. Coming from
Really?
a long line
Really?
of just, work your way up the corporate ladder,
Okay.
go to school. My dad was in the Army and now he's a forester. My mom's an athletic director. She used to be a school teacher and a secretary. And, both of my grandparents on both sides were college, go get a
Mhm.
job, work till your 401k is fat enough to
Right.
go live at the beach,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't really want to do that.
That's interesting.
So when I was 13, I started cutting grass for a local farm, just zero turn mower. I'd go clean it up. They really did me a favor, give me a job. And then since then, I just held so many different jobs. I was always working, and I always looked at the people I was working for, and I was like, what did you do to get yourself in this position? Like, how did you get to have this giant house that I'm cutting your grass for?
Right.
How are you driving this brand new car? All these things. And it was either a doctor, a lawyer, or just an entrepreneur and a business owner. Didn't want to go to medical school, not smart enough to be a lawyer. So I went for the third option, right?
Yeah.
And so when I turned 16, I started doing landscaping and land clearing. And it went well for a little bit, and then really quickly went downhill. Just poor operations, to be honest with you. And it kind of discouraged me for a while. I probably spent a year or so just kind of licking my wounds and thinking, how am I going to recover from this, and so on and so forth. And then I got my real estate license senior year of high school.
Wow.
I was still in school, so I had to get a GED because you have to have a GED or a high school diploma to get your real estate license. So I got a GED my senior year of high school, got my real estate license early. Turns out there was no sense in doing that because, I got it in March and graduated in May. So
Oh, wow.
Over those 2 months,
Yeah.
nothing happened.
Yeah,
It was useless. But no, it was good to get that. And I entered the real estate world at a very weird time coming out of the pandemic. We were in the housing market boom, but nothing was happening. So I was like, this is weird. I kind of got suckered into like the YouTube clickbait, like I'm a real estate agent and I make this much money and I do this and
The
that.
gurus.
Yeah, that's not the reality of it.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
it was pretty complicated to do that, and so I had a lot of time in my hands before coming to college, and I was working for a nursery at the time.
That's where your background in horticulture
Yes,
comes from.
I worked for this nursery for 3.5 years. So that's where kind of my passion for that industry comes from. And I would deliver plants to our clients, all the way from Charleston, South Carolina to Dallas, Texas. Just hook up a trailer and go. And most of the times I'd drop off plants, they would say, "Hey, like all these boxwoods look great. Do you know where I can find XYZ plants?" I'm like, "Oh, well, we don't grow them, but I've got a friend who does. Here's his number." And so when I was driving back from a delivery one day, I was like, what if I just stopped handing out these numbers? Like, what if I just became the middleman here? And so I looked into it a little bit, and it's such a niche market to be a plant broker that it's almost impossible to find anything on. You can Google, any industry or any company you want, how to start a trucking company, how to start a car, car dealership, anything. But when you Google how to start a plant brokerage,
Yeah.
Google's
Yeah.
like, what's a plant brokerage?
Right.
Interesting.
So, I just started becoming that middleman and started building clients and getting my name out. And as everything else, that went really slow. But, eventually now we've got tons of clients. We're in 15 states, all the way from
Wow.
Florida to Vermont to Washington State. I mean, just all over. And that's been a really good business, really fun. Met so many cool people. That's the thing I love about the green industry, as they call it, just everything related to landscaping and nurseries. It's so rare that you meet an unhappy person in that industry.
Really?
bet.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
That
Yeah.
makes sense,
Everybody,
yeah.
everybody is so happy. And they're always so willing to help you. They always want like your best interest. It's really encouraging. I think that was why it was so good for that to be one of my first businesses I really started, was because of the encouragement from everyone I met. Just all these, let me know if I can help. Here's my number.
Right.
Here's my personal line. Just all these words of encouragement and favors really was just awesome to see as a young guy, kind of scared to dip my toes in the water of the business world.
This has been a common, conversation topic that we've had on the podcast is that sort of like this self-actualization that an entrepreneur has to go through in order for them to be successful in whatever they're doing. And just as you say, that's a perfect, position to strategically put yourself in a scenario where there's a lot of support. And that's part of the reason all three of us are in college, is we're trying to do these business endeavors and we need the support where we can get it. And that's an interesting topic with you. You haven't necessarily brought like your education side and your business stuff together in the sense of like marketing it on Sanford's campus or like getting involved in the incubator. Can I ask you why is that? Is it because they're just like too separate?
Yeah, it's almost like living two lives. I've got an office space downtown. I've got all these other people I'm working with, and it's no discount to Sanford. I mean, I would love to get involved at Sanford, but it's just two totally different realms.
Right.
Like, I'm not gonna sell plants to college students. They're not gonna want to order $30,000 of plants.
You could sell to Sanford. They could become a client.
I've thought about that. They've got a contracted out landscaping company that does everything.
Okay.
Gotcha. I've thought about that as well. It just seems a little
a
little wonky.
Yeah. In the real estate world, I bet there's some connections that you've been able to make from Sanford. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's really just lesser so people I've met through Sanford, more so people who recognize Sanford's name, have some connection with Sanford. They went there, their friend went there, and everybody always, beautiful campus, love the school. And when you tell people you go to Sanford, it makes them look at you a little differently in a good way.
Yeah.
Because of the the rigor of the university and
Prestige,
and the standard
kind of,
we have to uphold and everything that comes along with being a Sanford student. People kind of hold you to a little higher standard. So that's been a really good addition to like, I'm a student at Sanford. Like, oh wow.
Is that kind of why you did that, or was it to appease the parents or what? Because if you have if you're being successful on your own, why do you need college?
It's a mixture of both. My parents both and grandparents all pushed me very heavily to go to college, so it was appeasing them and really it's more of a security net thing.
Exactly. You got to have that because if all else fails, I can go get a job.
Right. Yeah. If I've got a finance degree and a background and all this entrepreneurial endeavors, I can get a job somewhere if it all goes south.
Right.
That makes sense. So can I ask about like vision with I'm not going to make you go through each one of these, but like the vision for where like you see each of these businesses going and you as a executive within each of the aspects.
Right. Yeah.
Like overarching vision.
Yeah, I would say just like to put a number on it, it's like 5, 7, 10 years. My number one goal is to automate.
Yeah.
I want to bring in a COO type position, a CEO type position to these companies once I get them scaled to a degree where I can bring on somebody and pay them that salary they're going to need. It's just automate it. Because at that point, I can step back, let it do its thing. My wallet takes a little bit of a cut, but it's worth it because
you have time to go do other things.
Yeah.
That's my main issue right now is I'm at such a weird position with all these companies of we're to the size of where we're just constantly busy all the time, constantly having jobs, constantly getting phone calls. But we're not to the size to where we can hire out and automate these companies.
Right.
And so I'm just pulled every single day. I'm pulled like 4 different ways.
See, that's what I want to get into. I don't want to interrupt you, but I know that you have, like me personally, I'm still in school. I'm graduating here in May. And school takes a certain amount of time, right, to do well in. And I'm sure you want to do well. Yeah. And now that you have all these different kind of ventures pulling you in different ways, how, like, explain to these people, like, how do you time manage all of it?
Very quickly and frantically.
because that's like amazing to me, that because I think that like the time of the day when I'm really focusing on stuff and then I look at the clock and I'm like, where'd the time go? Like I literally sometimes don't have enough time to get what I need done.
Yeah, there are never enough hours in the day.
It's crazy.
Agree with that. But I mean, it's really just making sacrifices on both fronts of what do I think we're going to do in this class today? Am I going to be good to miss it and take a blow on the academic side, or I have to be here for this accounting test? Would it be a bad idea to try and reschedule this meeting last minute or something on that?
Right.
So it's just a lot of
weighing the cost and
Right.
prioritizing
Absolutely.
what's
Right.
needed in the moment.
And I imagine a lot of organization goes into that as well, because you've got probably 10 different tasks at any moment.
Oh yeah.
With 4 different things, so that's 40 tasks.
You have anxiety.
I don't have time for anxiety.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but it's really I think you'd be shocked at how unorganized I am. It's
Wow,
really just
wow.
I got my day planner, I've got my Outlook calendar, and
Yeah.
we just kind of push on, you know.
Right. Go from there. I
Yeah.
see. That makes sense. So, can we talk a little bit about impact with the different markets?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask too.
Yeah.
Just like you want to kind of break. Yeah, I know you want to automate all these different things, but what do you want to have an impact in? Like, what is your vision for now that it's automated? Like, what do you want to change in these industries? Like what
the
do you want to
markets.
do?
Right. I don't think it's very much changing and reshaping the industries
okay.
and the markets. It's just kind of, the plant brokerage is different because it is a niche, and everything you do, you are kind of pioneering that market. But for the real estate thing, I mean,
You just want to be in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
real estate investment's been around since ancient times. I mean,
Yeah.
nothing is rapidly reshaping
Right.
the real estate industry.
And I do have a question about, because you're in commercial, you're not in
Right.
residential right
Yeah.
now. So how is all this working from home, COVID, impacted commercial real estate? I know it
Good
really
question.
has, because not as many people are in the offices, not as many companies need office space.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is what I love about real estate. This is my favorite thing about it. It's we look at these challenges. We look at the work from home and the online shopping becoming a big roar. So you've got retail centers and brick and mortar stores going out of business, office complexes shutting down. So when you're left with all this open space, what do you do?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different. Actually, I was just a part of a project on 3rd Avenue North, about 2 blocks that way. It was the former office complex for the American Red Cross.
Is this the lofts?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the lofts, and it was 192 units. Well, it is now, but it was just this old abandoned office space. And so we went in, bought it, thought, what can we do with this space? Well, we just gutted it, turned it into apartments, and gave it a lounge, a rooftop patio. And so it's the reutilization and the redevelopment of
okay.
these struggling sections of commercial real estate. I was part of a project in South Georgia last year. Grocery store went out of business. So now you've got 32,000 square feet of just emptiness. What are you going to do with the grocery store? Well, we went in and filled it with self-storage units. And there's a lot of people that are buying retail centers, turning them into apartments. It's
wow.
A
lot of creativity.
it's
I
just
imagine.
rolling with the punches of the
Yeah.
modern world.
That's very interesting. I didn't think about that, because as Americans, we like to hoard things. So,
Yeah.
self-storage would be perfect for that type of thing. That's awesome. I love how I love the reutilization and we're not going to go and maybe in some cases we're going to tear it down and rebuild, but also being able to conserve some of history. Maybe if that
Right.
Red Cross building had some historical significance, then
Yeah,
you could,
It actually was a very interesting project. We worked hand in hand with the National Park Service to maintain the historical integrity of that building. So there were
Awesome.
certain, not really codes, but there were certain guidelines that we had to follow. Everything we did to the building had to be approved by the National Park Service to maintain the historical integrity of that building.
That's awesome.
That's super interesting, and that's kind of like a key point in the way that you do real estate, and that could be an impact point for you guys. Is there was I can't remember what the department store is called, but it's in Philadelphia, and my family was just there, and they were bragging about this pipe organ that was in this. I think it could have been before maybe. Well, I have no idea what the store is called,
Yeah.
but it was this huge pipe organ, and it was apparently like the oldest one in the country, and it was originally in a church. And so these people, these real estate developers, they bought the church, kept the pipe organ because it was like had such a historical significance, and they built a department store around it. And I was like, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Like, that's wild. You would not expect to walk into a Macy's and see a 200-foot tall pipe organ, you know?
no doubt, no doubt.
Like, that's crazy.
I think there should be more regulations on that stuff. And personally, because I know that we tear down, a lot of historical things. And I know that sometimes it needs to happen, but I feel like we do. I would like to see more conservation of things like that.
Right. And that's where I like to think that I set my brand apart in a way. I'm not your Wall Street, I don't care about your grandma's home, I'm building a Dollar General type guy.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Right.
I really pride myself and like to think that the grand vision of my every company that I'm ever a part of is not only the actual business aspect and the success and the scaling, but actually giving back to the communities in which we work in. So, becoming members of the Chamber of Commerce or giving back to some historical preservation, like you were saying. And then for a lot of, real estate projects, just getting feedback from the community, go to town halls, go to city council meetings and just say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
What do y'all think? How can we improve this? How can I work for you better?
And that aspect of like distinguishing yourself apart from like the Wall Street people that are big money that are in real estate is so much of their business is plug and play, where it's like these systems and these processes are laid out. The designs of the houses or buildings or whatever get plugged into a community after everything's just, demolished. And it's so much of that plug and play. And that's something that at least, I don't know if you've noticed it, but with, a lot of the conversations that we've had on the podcast, these young people in business are trying to do things in not that plug and play way. It could be because they're not, they don't have access to a couple $100 million to buy out a neighborhood, you know what I mean? Yeah. But it's that creative aspect. I appreciate that because I think that without that, you lose that innovation and you lose the newness aspect of it,
Yeah. So actually, last week, the Birmingham Business Journal does this series called Next Gen. You familiar with the Next Gen series? So I was recognized as one of the up and coming or emerging leaders in real estate construction.
Awesome.
That's
Dude.
sick.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. But I had to do basically submit some questions to like an online interview type thing for them to write the article about. And one of the questions was, how do you make a company or a project or whatever you're working on appeal to a younger generation? And kind of piggybacking off the conversation we were just having is people our age don't want a copy and paste lifestyle.
Right.
They don't want to live in cookie cutter houses. They don't want to work in a cubicle. They don't want to live the lifestyle of their parents. We're modern, we're chic, we're different, all this stuff you can say.
Yeah.
But it really is true. You want to live somewhere with character. You want to work somewhere with a good social atmosphere. You want to be not bored. You know?
And that philosophy follows that reason you picked entrepreneurship.
Right, exactly.
Specifically. And so that's awesome. So when it comes to like the way of doing what you're doing in the real estate world, are there like aspects that you've run into, and you can talk about the plant brokerage as well.
Yeah,
but
I'm
like
ask some more questions about that.
Yeah, aspects that were like the hardest pieces for you to overcome. What were some of those? Like learning curves or?
The learning curve, yes, but I'm a big believer in if you don't know how to do something, go do it and find out. Don't sit around and research. And if you fail, well, get up. That's an educational experience.
Right. Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
I would say the two biggest challenges I've faced, number one being a topic we discussed earlier of just how do I get people to look at me the same way as they would a 45, 55-year-old man, the CEO of a company, whatever. How can I get viewed the same? How can I get treated with the same respect? How do I get them to give me the same time of day? And to be honest, they're not going to until you get a track record.
Right.
Until
Right.
you walk in and say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I've done. If you don't want to treat me with respect, the next guy will.
Yeah.
Because when you're first starting out, you don't have the confidence and you don't have the track record to do that.
Yeah.
And so it's really just making relationships, building your reputation, building your personal brand as well as your actual brand, and getting yourself into an established position to where you can have a little bit of leverage against your age.
Yeah.
The second one, this is the main one, and this is what I struggled with a lot, and this is why I had a company fail in the past. You have to know when to say no. When you're starting a company, it's slow. So I'll use my landscaping and land clearing company as an example. Started it was super slow, and I would go out and bid these jobs to clear land, and it was forestry mulching. So I'd go out and bid jobs to mulch up this certain block of woods, and I would bid it on par with the market. And the landowner would see how young I was and how he hadn't heard of my company before.
Start questioning.
Well, he wouldn't start questioning. He'd just beat me down on the price.
Ah.
Give me a super lowball number.
Yeah.
And of course, because I just want to have work, I want to have something to put on my social media, my website, to tell my friends about and tell my future clients about, I just say, yeah, sure. So you do this job, you spend 2 weeks working on it.
Yeah.
You've got something to build your brand's rapport, but you just lost $1,000. It's not sustainable.
I really like how you're saying this, because I actually was recently talking to a guy was talking to our class about this, and he goes and does audits on TVA and these military defense contractors that are bidding on these contracts, because if the government's like, we need this helicopter, you don't want to underbid on making that helicopter, because your R&D is going to be crazy. So a lot of these things in these contracts, and I'm sure you've learned, is it's like per cost or whatever, per my time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to have a set number. It's going to be the amount of hours I put in and the cost for me to do this times whatever profit that like maybe you think is good. But you kind of got to leave it open-ended a little bit, I feel like, in the contract, so you don't screw yourself and lose out money and time.
Yeah. Fully agreed.
And one aspect of that is like you and I have talked about this, and I'm doing this right now with Decipher Marketing, is just as you said, you have to be giving value in order to create that name. And how do you give value and also see a response for yourself? And that's a hard, tricky thing for new entrepreneurs.
You gotta just take it for a while.
Yeah. And so like with Decipher Marketing as an example, I've given away like probably 75-80% of the subscriptions to it. And so I'm giving these away for a year. You're going to get a year for free once we're finished with this. And so Sean, same example is the phone cases. That's another thing. He runs the Tribby Case phone cases.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. And so every podcast guest gets a year of Decipher Marketing and a phone case.
Yeah,
free.
so I'll link that to you. Can
keeps getting better.
Pick you out one. Yeah, I got some stickers as well if you want one of those. But slap it on your building or something.
Yeah. But that idea is like trying to give value so that because I think in the terms of like business and the context of business is you're investing in the relationships with people, and like especially in the real estate world, and probably the same thing for like your sourcers and your other clients with the plant brokerage, is you're really investing in that relationship with that person, and you're not, at least on my end, I'm not necessarily looking for an outcome immediately. You know, I'm saying, okay, I think if I can push this good, positive, thing into the world,
build your resume.
Yeah, sort of. Like that's
personal
kind of the
brand.
Right,
personal,
right.
Yeah.
Right. The way that I'm viewed to the world needs to be a certain way.
Right.
And so like that social proof has to happen some kind of way or another. And so that's like one way of like, at least I think has helped me. But it's interesting that you say that, like, especially in that aspect, when you're providing not just a service, actual products.
Yeah.
That's kind of the differentiating piece of that, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because I think starting a service-based industry or service-based company is harder because you're not valuing, your input cost, you're valuing your time.
Yeah.
So what
How
is
do
your
you
time
judge
worth
that?
to you?
You know?
Exactly.
Starting out, you're going to undervalue yourself.
Yeah. Exactly. If you're starting out, you're like, oh, I'll work for free
Yeah.
just to get this company rooted.
Right.
And then more of a goods based company, a product based company. You have
your
a bottom line.
margins.
Yeah.
You can bid out a job and see if I don't sell this product for $30,000, I won't make money.
Right.
It's a lot easier to see that.
Yeah.
And so it makes it a little easier to actually start and scale and operate those product-based businesses because you're valuing material. You're not valuing your time.
So if you kind of like translate this into the way that you look at how your schedule breaks up, and like the roles that the hats that you're wearing, does the consulting, because that's more service based, would you say that falls a little bit lower than your priority with the real estate and with the brokerage?
Yeah, I would say the consulting arm is the most time consuming because that's what I do for the majority of a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
But in terms of priority, it falls lower than, I mean, you said it perfectly. Because quite frankly, if I get a call to buy some plants, or if I go look at an apartment complex or storage complex or storage facility, that's going to, the end value of that is going to be greater to me.
Right.
And, it doesn't look awesome when I, call the company I'm consulting for and say, by the way, I'm not going to be in for 2 days because I'm working on this other thing. But it really is hard to value your time and the cost of your time. And to me, I would rather make less money and work less than make more money and just work nonstop. Yeah, because my time is my most valuable resource.
And I know we're like focusing on business, but that's an aspect of your life outside of that world.
You only live once.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I like how you said before, how it's sort of like you're living two lives with school and then business. I think the key point within that, and I try to do this for myself, I know you do too, I imagine you do as well, but like figuring out how one aspect can impact the other in a positive way. And it's even harder when you're like, talking about like in the business side of that, like how would your development company be positively impacting your plant brokerage?
Right.
Or how would the investments that you're making in the real estate world impact the car business? Like, you have no idea, and these are like super far view kind of like discussions, but it's an interesting thing that all business people have to figure out eventually. It's just most take 20 years before that, and so that's why you're so impressive, is that you've been able to do so much so fast.
It really is impressive, and I don't want to cut you off. Like, keep going if you have more to say.
No, that's
I really wanted to pinpoint that because a lot of people I've talked to, it's like it's scary. A lot of people it's intimidation. A lot of people are younger, like our viewers, and they probably don't even believe in themselves that they can start a business. And you've created, you've just named like 3 or 4 right there that you've done. So it's like, what is the thing that, like, simple terms that, like, somebody has an idea, what can they do to make that a reality?
It's a good question.
That's a really good question. My initial thought is go tell as many people as you can about the idea. But you have to be very careful with that.
Because I've dealt with that. You have to be extremely careful with that because people, it wouldn't work. They'll pinpoint all the flaws in your idea. And then you almost like stop believing in your idea.
Right.
I almost like to keep it secretive in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
it's just the same as like the peer review of an essay. You want people to point out your flaws, but
don't get caught up on it.
Yeah, there's a line between beating yourself up because you were so excited about this idea and now you look dumb in front of your mom or whatever. But you've just got to be able to just roll with the punches. Just, oh, this idea won't work because it has this flaw. Well, thank you for your input. I'm going to go think on how to minimize that flaw.
Yeah.
And work around that. And so that would be definitely the first.
Just kind of like what's a good word? Like peer review ideas
Yeah,
or something
exactly.
like that. Yeah.
You just have like a brainstorm session with some of your friends. Y'all just sit down, hang out, throw on some football. Hey, here's an idea I had the other day. What do y'all think about it?
Yeah.
And then, a lot of the times when you're in like a brainstorm session like that, Dylan might go, oh, well, this is what's wrong with it. Then you pitch in and go, well, here's a solution.
Whoa,
Yeah.
exactly. And then you're
So-
like, whoa, I love the brainstorming. I think that's really where this podcast resonated from, if that's a good word to use.
Yeah.
But because we were having these conversations, a lot more absurd and random, but we have definitely dialed in. To
Yeah,
what-
we had one episode that was we were talking about World War III, and we were talking about some of the most ridiculous
cryptocurrency.
crap
It's
ever.
so easy to just veer right
I
on.
No,
know.
that.
absolutely.
I like to say that Dylan is the play-by-play and I'm the color man, because Dylan, that's like, if you don't know, that's like what football broadcasters and stuff they are. Dylan keeps us in line, and I sprinkle in a little color every now and then
Yeah.
because I get distracted, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I want to go down this rabbit hole of what we're talking about, and Dylan reels it back in.
and the perfect thing that comes from that is just like the brain multiplier effect that you were talking about. And when you have a bunch of diverse people having a conversation about one topic, you get, just as you said, you get problems, you get solutions,
Yeah.
and 20x sort of
Yeah.
thing in the same conversation. Which is, so like we've talked about doing like a big event for all the people that we had on What's Next Huntsville, and eventually doing the same thing for What's Next Birmingham. But like that's something that we're thinking about, of like, what if we were to, throw this event and have everybody sit down and talk to them about what's changed, how they're doing things differently, talk about how we can continue to improve, because that's a big piece of that. But you get that brain multiplier effect, and that's like, I mean, one of the biggest pieces of being a young entrepreneur is going back to that support thing, is
The
when
network.
that network that supports you, and that's the thing that defines the problems that
Right.
one person wouldn't even be able to think about, and then figure out a solution that person wouldn't have ever considered. That's like one of my favorite pieces of business, is because you're solving problems with other people,
Right.
and most of the time it's geared towards something, and that's kind of going back to the impact piece for your businesses. Is you said that on the impact side you wanted to be working with people and help on that aspect, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that, like I say, is when a young entrepreneur has that vision and has that want, it's sort of like we were talking about it the other day with Amazon. Amazon started out as a book business on
Right, yeah.
literally. And so, but they were so customer focused and focused on having an impact on their customer base that they came up with, I don't know how many businesses Amazon now
Yeah.
has and how many products and services they offer and provide. I just think that is where people do separate themselves. And I think you have separated yourself from the masses in that aspect in specific. And that aspect feeds all the others,
Right.
And so I love that. So let me ask, like, if you mentioned 5 to 7 years, do you mind running back on that once
Yeah.
more?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my main vision is just kind of going back to what I was saying, automating
Mm-hmm.
and just expanding,
Yeah.
but not expanding and scaling the businesses individually. I think that'd be great if the person I hired brought in to automate it did scale it at the same time, because
Yeah.
ideally I would like them to have the majority of the reign over that company. But I want to get to a position where I'm just buying up companies left and right.
Yeah.
There's a statistic. It's I think the baby boomers are retiring.
They're selling their company.
They're selling their companies. It was an average of like maybe 12 businesses are either closed down or bought that were like recently owned by baby boomers, like 12 or 15 a week.
Oh wow.
And
Wow.
so that generation is retiring
They're getting out of the
At a-
game.
fast pace,
Yeah.
but they're just closing these successful businesses.
Really?
I mean, your kids don't want to take it. They're already rooted in a career. The grandkids don't want to take it. They
Yeah.
want to move away.
And they're also probably saying, I don't want to sell to one of these big investments that's just going to do the
Yeah.
plug and play thing.
Well, it's that, and it's a factor of I don't want to take the time to sell
Right.
it because how much. And this is another thing about some people, just like mom and pop apartment complexes and storage facilities that are owned by people in these generations. Is something I hear so frequently. I just want to retire. It's like I don't know how much time I have left. It's like money isn't really the issue. I've run this business successfully my whole life. I don't need the money from selling it. It would be nice. But if it doesn't sell for 2 years, well, then I got to work for 2 more years. And I
Right.
don't know if I have 2 more years.
Yeah.
And so they're willing to just come in and give away these companies. And so if I can just create like a formula of leverage up, get investors, get banks to back me, buy a business, automate it, run it for 2-3 years, either keep it or sell it.
Yeah.
Just take a little more of a standard private equity approach at this, as opposed to
Like a
the-
VC
yeah,
perspective. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Just come in, leverage up, buy out, automate, repeat, and then that's where your copy and paste strategy comes in,
Right.
and that's when you start to just expand rapidly.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that I've learned about actually scaling a company is you have to have your systems so precise.
Yeah. Pinpointed.
It's got to be your company has to become very systematic. I have to be able to get a phone call from, Texas and say, I want this special plant that's only grown in Maryland. Well, I can do that job in 10 minutes because I have my people in Maryland. I have the truck drivers that'll go from Maryland to Texas, and I have the end buyer in Texas.
Yeah.
But before that, you're scrambling and you don't know if you're going to do it. And once you become super systematic, that's when you scale. That's when it becomes easy to scale.
Right. That makes sense. So what are the first steps towards getting to that M&A position, like with your businesses?
I think it's really, I would like to, graduate college. A college degree helps a lot when you're getting investors and lenders on your
Absolutely.
team. So obviously get a degree, and then I would like to expand on like a more concrete real estate portfolio before I start doing these more or less risky M&As,
Yeah.
because that's just a good foundation. Everybody's always going to need a place to live. Get a couple apartment complexes, just stabilize myself and my company before I go out and start, becoming a little crazy with the business side of things. And so really, I mean, I've got relationships with lenders, commercial lenders, business lenders. I mean, really all across the Southeast, just through businesses that I've done. Very thankful to have grown up in a vibrant community and gone to a good high school and go to a good college now, to where everyone's always willing to help you.
Right.
There's so many opportunities to network. And so I've got a network. I've been building a network of lenders and people who would invest in these ideas. And so really, it just comes down to getting a degree, making a concrete foundation with real estate, and then pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
Let's find these businesses. Let's buy them up. Let's go.
Love that.
I mean, I don't like to wait around.
Yeah, absolutely. Clearly.
I'm a very impatient person. I'm ready to go. 4 years for a degree is already too long. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to get out of
wanted
here.
to ask. So I know Dylan's talked a bit about M&A, and do you think that there are adequate marketplaces for people that are like the mom and pop to go and be like, listen, I want to list my business here. I know there's business brokers and whatnot, but I'm saying, like, would it help them if it was an easier process? Do we need to make that easier for
I've
them?
thought about that, and there are there's like biz buy and sell, and then a couple of different industries have like specific. There's, if you look at like bread and cracker and chips transportation companies, there's a couple like Routes to Success is one of those websites where it's an industry specific, where you can go in and buy out these smaller companies. But I think it's harder to make like a realtor.com or a Zillow for businesses, because it's not as simple
Yeah.
As listing a house, listing a house, you already had, you need your pictures, your description, all your information, that you need. But if I'm buying a trucking company,
Gotta have all the financial data.
yeah, if
all the-
I think it boils down to, if I'm buying a trucking company, it's going to be a largely different listing from, a jewelry store.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just hard to bring all that into one
I
place.
see what you're
Yeah.
saying.
And
Different
so-
listings, and it's
yeah.
hard to like find, because with businesses you need specific buyers. Like
Yeah,
a seller is
absolutely.
not
Yeah.
going to that example that you gave before about the baby boomers. The reason they're not selling their businesses is just as you said. They don't want to give it over to their children. They don't want to sell to one of these cookie cutter businesses that's just going to put a bunch of money into it and turn it into a big conglomerate that doesn't actually impact people in the
Right.
way that business owner wants it to happen. So that's a good explanation of why that wouldn't work. I think that's sort of where the broker comes in,
Mhm.
is being able to connect that correct buyer with that seller. So outside of like obviously the real estate stuff is transitional for the M&A, like understanding that process and understanding who investors are and all of that. What is your process for getting into that M&A world? You mentioned build up the foundation of the
Get
real
your
estate
safety
and,
net.
yeah, and the safety net. Do you think you'll be deploying money from like this business, or do you think you would look out for investors and build up a fund kind of thing in the M&A?
In my mind, I would like to have a mixture of both.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes money to make money,
Right.
And I wouldn't pitch an idea to an investor unless I had some sort of stabilization in a
Mhm.
company. So I would start it up with my own money,
I see.
get everything rooted, create a foundation for this business to where we can then bring in investors who won't be weary about, oh, you're a seedling company. I mean,
Yeah.
you're barely even in existence.
Yeah.
Why are you expecting me to give you $1 million right now? But I think really, I think, like, going back to your question,
Mhm.
it's just gonna be jumping into it at first.
Yeah.
To actually get into M&As. I mean, just
Finding good deals.
finding the right deals, finding people retiring.
Refining your formula for what's
Exactly.
gonna work for
it's
you.
it's just go out and make mistakes and
Mhm.
lose money and do things wrong.
lose a lot of money
and
sometimes.
then hopefully not.
Hopefully
but,
not.
Yeah, just go out and do it until you have made enough mistakes to where you then have your copy and paste strategy.
Mhm.
You can go out and you scale
Yeah.
exponentially.
Yeah, that's super cool. I think we should check these real quick.
Yeah. Are they good? They should be.
Looked at my watch. Now
We can talk more off
Yeah.
camera.
But we'll circle back to, because I'm very much so in line with you right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll hop back on this.
So what were we talking about before?
I don't remember, honestly.
do I.
We were talking
No
about
idea.
vision and the impact points and 5 years from now.
So
Oh, and we were talking about how those steps, so the foundation and then figuring out how each piece falls into the others.
Right.
So you're like really creating a puzzle with each of these pieces of your business. And it's so cool because the big perspective, I can already see that vision of you being able to have a sort of full circle business that helps landowners, whether that is they have a building that they want to refurbish and turn it into something else, or they have a business or a building that they want to sell, or if they have a business that needs plants and wants to,
Yeah.
look greener. It's so cool that how you're putting each of these pieces together and you're finding that impact, just as you said, not necessarily for the market, but for the customers. And that's a super important piece that separates you from the rest. So
yeah.
I admire the hell out of you for all
Yeah,
of
man,
what you're doing. This is super
congratulations,
cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And this has been a great conversation. Thank you very
Yeah.
much for coming on.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, thanks for having me. This was awesome. Had so
Absolutely.
much fun.
I know we could sit here and talk all day.
No,
It's gonna be a
actually.
longer podcast for sure.
Yeah.
But I just want to finish it off. So we like to finish it off with the last question: is what's next on your agenda for like making this thing? Like, what are you gonna go do? The next month or two, or down the
Mhm.
line to like continue this, success and the progress on this?
Yeah, I think it's really just staying true to the goals that I've set out for myself and I've set out for my companies over the next 6 months to a year or 2 months, and just stay hungry, stay aggressive, stay persistent, and just keep trying to grow and scale and pick up new jobs and make new clients and meet new people and lenders and real estate agents or whatever it may be. Just expand your network, expand your clientele, expand the business. I mean, that's just keep
Grinding away, chipping away.
keep doing what you're doing. I mean,
Yeah.
but
But you're doing the right things, my
Yeah,
friend.
man,
Oh,
you're on a
thank you.
good track.
Thank
I
you.
think that you definitely have success in your future, sir.
thank you.
Definitely.
Y'all too. This is awesome. And I
I
know
appreciate
y'all
it.
both have a lot
Appreciate it.
else going on. Y'all's very impressive
Appreciate
portfolio y'all all have.
Thanks, man. Thank
This
you.
is awesome.
Well, Zach, we're going to sign off, but once again, thank you very
Oh,
much
yeah.
for this convo. And you guys can check all of his information in the
Yes, we'll link
description.
everything.
And we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
See ya.
Nice.
Benito.